Hey guys, welcome back. So wanted to talk a little bit today about something that I've learned over the last few weeks. I've been on a road trip visiting some of our guys and lots of things in mind, working with some of our best people, to be frank, and also some of our good friends. And one thing I noticed is, how people at a high level, people earning six figures or more, and how they manage family and business. So talking about, very young, talented man that has a growing family, and he's, out there in California doing his thing and building his business. And, we live in a time where in direct sales, people are getting paid a lot of money, sometimes more money than they really deserve, because this is a good thing. It's an attribute. It's maybe a compliment to the industry right now, to where, people are they have extra money and stuff. The industry's healthy. We've been talking about that. But it could create negatives too. And I think that if people are not mastering the art of really communicating and merging family with business, they will fault and eventually expire. And I think that is something to talk about. So I'll give you the story. I'll give you the example. We have this young man, has a growing family at the house, and basically, if you ask the spouse, like, well, hey, how long is this guy gone? And of course, the answer is, 12 to 14 hours. He's in the office by 8 in the morning. He's not back until 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So it's, maybe a 14-hour day, 5-6 days a week. So it appears to where the person's working 14 hours. And then I go visit the person runs the place. And if I had to pay him hourly for the hours worked, there would be 3 or 4 hours. I don't see 14 hours worked. I see 3. And so there's this disconnect, right? To where, of course, that can, as you can imagine, it can lead for somebody at home to believe my person is working, this period of time, but there's really only this amount of work being done. And so you can imagine how that could create, in a family, if there's not extremely good communication about specifically that, it could really, the opposite of help really, it could lead the person at home to think, well, my person must be getting a lot of work done. My spouse must be working a lot of hours. So pretty soon here, we're about to have all this free time, because obviously lots of work leads into, success, and success leads into delegation, and delegation leads into time. But it's frankly not that. It's actually quite different, because the person's gone from 14 hours a day of work, but there's only 3 hours, maybe 4 hours of, actual work being done. So the business only advances 3 hours, but it spends 14. And then after, imagine 2, 3 years, 4 years of doing that, even the person doing the work can be fooled themselves and unconsciously to believe, man, I've been working the last 4 years, 14 hours a day. And again, it's all perspective, because they can justify how they have been gone from the house for 14 hours, dressed in a, work costume, but are they actually advanced? But the business only has grown 3 hours a day worth, which really only equates to maintenance. It doesn't really equate to real growth as a person, especially at a small business level, especially in direct sales, where it needs so much engagement, so much involvement with the people. And so it was almost not heartbreaking, because of course, I think this specific person that I think is going to turn it around, but I'm here during this trip, and I have one goal, one mission, and I'm deciding I'm going to get this person to the next level in business. And I realized after a couple of days there, wow, I actually cannot help this person's business unless I help their family situation first. Because I realized if I tell him what to do with his business, it's going to create more work, which is not a problem for the person because he's already spending the work, but it would be a problem for the spouse, because the spouse would not understand that, because the spouse already thinks the work is happening. And so I realized, okay, what is the expectation of the spouse? And again, I could put a plan for work in motion for this person, but it would definitely hurt the relationship at home, which is not my goal. I think people should I think sometimes people believe that they can only have time and then not money, or they can have money but then not time at home. And I believe this is not true. I think people can have money and they can have time, and it just depends on how they treat time and how they treat money. So instead of, creating a work plan, I realized, hey, we're going to create a work plan, but step number one, if we rewind, is going to be setting expectations at home with family, time with children, time with spouse, and creating boundaries around that. Because of course, time with spouse, time with children is not mandatory. There's no one paying you for it, but it's very important. It feeds the soul and helps the person stay grounded. And unless they have that, and of course, a person that's very unorganized is going to always push back the unconditional time that they should spend with their family to get work done. But if the work isn't being done properly, or there's not enough amount of work being done properly, the work is almost pointless. So you can tell there's a level where people hit in business, and I'm speaking directly to, if you're a person that you're so into work that you're like, I don't have time for relationships. This is foolish. I'm not saying go look for relationships. Maybe you don't want to be in one, but don't fool yourself. Tell yourself that you don't have time for it. It's just, you need to learn to make time for both, because as your business grows, as your career advances, you're not going to just have all of a sudden all this free time to go date. You're going to still be busy, especially, if you're growing, you're going to actually want to be busy, which means you're going to have to learn to date, fall in love, do whatever you're doing in your personal life, and be busy at the same time. Similar to where if you want to start going to the gym, you're like, well, I'm not going to the gym because I'm busy. In that case, you should learn to put the gym in your busy schedule, because then you're only saying that you would only go to the gym if you stop being busy. But if your career is advancing and you're doing what you're supposed to do, you will remain busy, which is good. Therefore, you'll never go into the gym. So then that habit is impossible. You see how sometimes we condition ourselves and we make the fool's choice. There's a book called Crucial Conversations that talks about, people always give themselves one or the other option, the fool's choice, which is if I get one, I don't get the other. But the reality is you can actually get both, and you can access both. And so this is me here thinking, wow, I'm here to fix a business, and I have to almost become like I have to put my mind, I have to talk to the spouse, I have to talk to the team of this person and help create an environment that supports the entrepreneur so they can go work the hours that they need to work physically, not in a work uniform, but physically work the job so they can advance the business, so the business can then purchase the time back, and then they can reinvest into their family. And so the question is, do you have someone at home that believes you're working more than you are? If so, it leads to disaster, and you have to fix that, or vice versa. And this happens a lot less, but do you have someone at home that believes you work a lot less than you do? In that case, that's dangerous too. But more than likely, there might be somebody at home that thinks you work all this time because they equate work to time gone, which is fair. They're not in the business. They don't really need to know what you do, and they just need to assume. And if you don't have excellent communication, a really basic level, they're going to equate time gone from work, which is completely normal. So then if you're not working all of that time, it's going to lead to two different points where, 5 years in, this person's like, man, you've been working for 14 hours a day, 12 hours a day, or whatever phrase. Hey, you've been working in this business, in this job, you've been working for 12 hours, or you've been coming home at 8 o'clock at night every day. But then when you look at progress, results, sales, revenue, really whatever measuring stick you're using, there's somebody been in the business half the time passing you right by because they are spending the time. And so I wouldn't even call this laziness. I would just say careful, because as we make enough money, we can manage our way to pay people and staff to manage our small business. But the biggest treasure of a small business is the owner of the company, which is so rare nowadays. And so I think it's crucial that you look at yourself this way, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you have this mindset, or maybe you're pushing to open a business or you're running a team. Ask yourself this: if we had a manager that was going to watch you all day and just record you all day and only pay you per hour for every hour of actual work, not answering emails, not being on a Zoom call where you're not speaking or paying attention, not doing paperwork or filing stuff that anyone could do, not being on the computer entering data or birthdays of people, and not mailing checks. These are not work things. Actual work, right? Speaking to a customer, selling, speaking to a new employee, both, combining all those four things, speaking to a client, that's work. how many hours, ask yourself, how many hours would I get paid? If I was actually on an hourly position, how many hours of work would I get paid? You know, I'll be perfectly honest, I'm probably gone more hours than I would get paid. But if that happens, I'll go home. I'm not home, I'm not here until 9 p.m. if I don't have to be. That never happened. I don't think I'm ever here until 9 p.m. But if I did, it's because I would be working. I wouldn't be stretching time. And so I think it's good to either challenge yourself to get paid per hour. Imagine you were an employee and ask yourself, how many hours of work would I actually be paid? Is it the same amount of hours that I'm gone? Am I engaged mentally? That would be one thing. And the second thing is, if you're not, I would, and this might not be for everybody listening, but I would challenge you, if you're not actually working all the hours that you're gone, then go. Then actually go home. So in 5 years, you don't have this burnt out feeling that you've been working. Go home and nap, or whatever thing that you feel maybe a little guilty to do, at least do it. So you are cashing in on the time that is not being worked, because the business progress will be the same. It will only, the business progress only depends on the amount of hours worked. Hopefully that makes sense. So I think I want to talk a little bit about this, family versus business. What is the balance? And of course, and every family member understands, especially if you are a person that's you're a little crazy, you're an entrepreneur, you want to grow, you want to make more than the average salary, you're that kind of person. Your spouse knows, or whoever you're trying to date, they know that. And so they're going to accept the fact that, hey, there's a little bit of time I have to invest into my business. I'm married, I have a kid and a kid on the way, and my wife is more important to me than my job, and my children are more important to me than my job. But my wife does not need 40 hours of dates with me. That would be insane. She needs less time. My business might need 40 hours. So again, I think the level of communication and knowing is extremely important. It helps relief. Somebody can hit their cap in their career. This person I'm talking about is 28 years old, literally hit a cap, and his career will not move forward unless there's a conversation, because nobody wants to wreck their situation at home with, the mother of your children or the person you're with. Nobody's volunteering to do that, but nobody wants to grow less or make less money as inflation goes up, and of course everybody wants to grow. So the person's going to hit a cap until they unlock this. And I think it's important that you analyze, where am I at? Am I being completely honest with my hours? If I'm not, could I just take some of those hours and enjoy them? Or could I actually work them? But staying in that middle ground where you're letting shame and guilt a little bit kind of define your day, extremely dangerous. 3 to 5 years down the road, you're probably going to pay the price, and hopefully you don't get to that point. So hopefully that helped, and see you at the next one.